my sweet friends, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome back to my channel. Before we get into today's project, I just want to take a quick minute to thank everyone who left me such sweet comments on my last video about my little break from posting. I just wanted you all to know that I do feel very blessed to have the best YouTube family. You're all so encouraging and sweet and generous and kind, and I love all of you very much. And so I just wanted to let you know that I am thankful for each and every one of you. For today's project, we're going to get back into our stash. We're going to use up that paper. I'm using my Authentique Endless collection, and I'm just going to make the most sweet little mini album that I can with that, using some trims from Really Reasonable Ribbon and flowers from Little Birdie Crafts. So stick with me and we'll make this together. So here is my book base, and we've made this quite a few times. I will run through it again very quickly because it is so easy. One thing to note is that you can change the dimensions of this book to suit your project that you're working on. I would just recommend being aware that you're only going to get so many cuts out of a sheet of paper, so you want to think about using it frugally so that you're not being wasteful and causing a lot of offcuts. I am starting with 110-pound cardstock. That's very important. You want your book to be sturdy, and I'm going to create a book that is 6 inches high by 5 inches wide. I have a piece of paper for my left-hand side. This is 10 3/4 inches wide and 6 inches tall. I'm going to score it at 5 and 5 3/4, so that will be the left-hand side of my book. My second piece is still 6 inches high. This time it is only 10.5. So scored at 5 and then 5.5, and that is going to give me my right hand portion. So this will be basically a trifold flip book. And what I want to do is just add adhesive to the back the piece that I'm joining together. It's very easy to get this lined up because those are basically the same size. And so you can see here we've just created a nice book base. I think it's easiest to go ahead now and put on the back because it's not got so many layers inside. Here is my pattern paper. So like I mentioned in the preview, I'm using my Endless collection. This is from Authentique Paper, and I am going to use the same matting throughout just for consistency. So although these books are a great use of your stash collections, getting through the papers, you can mix and match to join up all the different surfaces that you need to cover. You do need to keep in mind that if you're going to use the same cardstock throughout, you probably need a fair bit of it to cover all of these pages. So just remember that when you're pulling your paper for your project. So here's the back. This is covered, and I want to also cover this portion, which is going to be on the left when we flip it. It looks nice to have the pattern paper. Also, I'm going to add that with a bit of the 110-pound cardstock adhered to the back, so it will just be a little bit extra sturdy. And I'm going to just add this without the border, and so I think it just looks nicer here because you'll get the border from each of the pages. So here's the back side, and so when you close that up, you can see that will be on the left. And I'm going to start in the middle this time instead of the first page. I don't generally do that, but I found that I'm going to add my full page tip-ins, which I really love to add extra surface to cover when you're working on the mini album. To finish it, that I want full page tip-ins, and I do often add them where they fold upright, so like a top folding card, but for this one I'm going to add them to the inside, and they're going to open like a book on the inside. And so I just want to add them now. I have cut the background for these to be just like a regular folding card, and they are 5 by 6. That way they will line right on up to the book, and that way all my borders will stay nice and consistent. Another thing that you want to remember, what side you want your page to open on. I want mine to open this way, so I'm going to add my folded portions on the outside of each of these sections, and that way it will open the way I want. So here I am just lining that up. I'm going all the way up to the fold line, but I'm not going to go over that at all because we don't want there to be any trouble folding this book back up. So just lining that up, and now you can see how many layers of pattern paper we are adding, and this is going to make our book very thick and very sturdy and very chunky, which I really love for a mini album because it just makes it much more sturdy in the long run. So here is my left hand portion. It's the same exact thing. I picked that beautiful bluish wood grain pattern to go on the inside for both of these portions because I think when they all show together it looks nice to have them coordinate. So it's all that beautiful wood. Another thing I liked about this specific pattern is that it's light enough that you could write on it. So if you want to put your pictures or add your memorabilia, you could easily do some journaling right on the pattern paper here, and you don't need to add a second journal card or anything like that. So that will be very nice. So here are my inside pages. You see that's going to open, and then we have another open here. We've got a lot of extra real estate just by adding these two folded portions. So what I want to do now is go in with my pattern paper. I'm still using that same matting throughout, and I think it coordinates really beautifully with this collection. That blue is sort of a teal color, and so it kind of pulls in, adds a lot of depth. I want to include some additional tip-ins. Now these aren't going to be full-size page tip-ins, but just journal card, and because I pulled these from the collection, I know that they're going to coordinate perfectly. I cut these and then I matted them, and then I added them to the tip-in apparatus so that I can adhere this before I add the pattern paper, and that just secures all these layers in together. So here is one side has the beautiful image and the other had lines, so I thought that was perfect. Nice place to add writing. And so I'm just going to fold that over the edge, and then I'm going to add this as a full piece here on the side. So this is the right hand side. I wanted my smaller journal card tip-ins to open the same way the page does, so that way I can keep it all consistent. So here is one tip and then two tips. We'll do the same for this side, and I was lucky enough to find quite a few of the journal cards in this collection that I wanted to use for this book, so I'm still using that same pattern paper, and then I've got this beautiful journal card matted and added on the back, the same as my other page, and then here's some yellow, and that pulls the color out of that pretty sunflower. So let's add this to this side, and that will be the inside. Now you can see why we're adding so much depth to our spines, and really needs that to accommodate the bulk of the paper layers you're adding. Okay, so for my page on this side, I'm just going to turn it for a moment because it's easier for me to get things lined up, and I'm going to pick a different pattern from the collection. This one has a beautiful hexagon and bee theme, and I think it's really quite lovely. And so this is going to show on both pages when I open it. What I want to do is include a small portion where it could be a photo mat. That way you know it's a very special photo. And I want to add this to the left-hand top corner. And I'm going to use this sort of rectangle doily. And I picked this up. That's one of my new dies from Gina Marie, and so I just chose the smaller one. I cut that with white cardstock. That's going to act as my doily for this page. Then I'll just top it with more of the collection paper. So here's my photo mat, and to decorate the rest of this page, because now obviously it's out of balance, I want to include another part of the journal card that kind of goes with the theme. And so this was a 3x4 cut apart. I just clipped off the portion that I didn't want to use, and then I used the same matting, and I put white cardstock on it to coordinate with the book base. You could switch this out for any occasion that you're doing, if you're doing Christmas or Halloween or whatever. Just coordinate with the base of your book that you created. For this one, I'm only adding adhesive to the corners on the bottom and the right hand side. I want to be able to tuck my picture in underneath this, so I can have a very layered look when I'm finishing this book. And it looks like I've added all these pieces as I worked along, and this is going to be a bit of a tuck spot, and I'll be able to slide a picture underneath. Let's show you, see how that works. Put that right under there. So now that is going to be a pretty page with a special image. Let's work on this side. I do like to have a pocket for these books so that if you have some pictures or mementos you want to tuck in, that you don't want to adhere down to your book. It's important to add a place that you can tuck in and secure things. So here is my page. It's going to have that same blue as my cardstock. And then here's my pocket. Remember, I'm using that B pattern paper. I'm just going to add this here and secure my pocket on first. This gives me a whole lot of extra room on the inside of the pocket and keeps it from pulling apart from the page. So here is that background. I'm just lining it up with the top to get it nice and even. Then of course you want to finish your pocket with the coordinating pattern paper. So here's more of that plaid that coordinates very nicely. I'm going to go ahead and pull my backing off now and add it to my book before I add any other additional elements. And it is easier once again to work from the side to get this lined up. So I'll just add that now. Okay, to decorate this page, I've got another one of my journal cards. This one has lines again, so it's another great place to add my journaling. And I've only put adhesive on the bottom. So this card is attached to 110-pound cardstock. I want that to be very sturdy so that it doesn't get bent when you put things in and out of the pocket. And I'll just kind of position that here. I want to decorate my card with one of the sentiments that came on the cut apart sheet. So this was just a die cut sheet that had different sentiments and images. I cut this from what looked like an arrow. It didn't really match the theme, so I just removed the portion that I didn't want. And I'm just going to secure it here, and that will be a nice sentiment for the bottom of my page. And I did already prepare an insert for my pocket. This is just more of that pretty blue wood grain, and in the past I have covered the back of my inserts with the coordinating pattern paper, but I find that this really helps to leave room for more journaling. So I'm gonna just go ahead and add that one-sided insert with that coordinating pattern paper. So here's the inside of the book. Now is the time when you want to bring in your trim. If you're going to tie your book on the side, as I do, I just want to add a little bit of double-sided adhesive tape here to tack this down temporarily while I add the cover. That will be more secure that way, but I just want it to stay in place for now. Pull off what you think you need to tie a generous size bow and adhere that down straight and wrap it around the back. And now I'm going to work on the cover, and I've opened my book so that it's easier to work on a flat surface. I'm going to bring in my base layer. This is that pretty diagonal plaid, and I've used the same matting obviously for the cover as well so that it all looks nice and consistent. And so here's the base layer. The great thing about these books is that once you've taken the measurement for one of your pages, you know it's going to work all the way throughout because they're all the same size. So that makes it a whole lot easier. I'm going to add my next portion here, and this is just one of the coordinating pattern papers from the collection. I put that on foam, and then I did add a little bit of my Tombow for a secondary adhesive. So that is our first raised section, and then I want to bring in another kind of pretty floral with bird pattern for the top just to keep it from looking a little bit too busy. And I cut that so that I could utilize that same matting that's already there. For my next layer, I've got one of my new die cuts. So this is another one from Gina Marie, and it just has a lot of very pretty nested banner shapes with a stitched edge. And I struggled with this a little because my focal point is fairly close to this shape, and I was having a challenge to get it to fill in the space, but then when I turned it on its side, it all kind of came together. And then also it's going to help me neutralize a little bit of that stripe, which was looking just a little bit loud in taking over the cover. So here's that stripe, and I'm going to top it with a doily, and I just want to give a base for the focal image to land on that will keep it from looking busy. Here's that image, and I really love this vintagey bicycle. It has some sunflowers and a windowsill. Here is a sentiment that came off of that same sheet that I mentioned earlier, and this was just the way it was. I didn't have to cut it anymore, but I did take my scissors and kind of cut off the picky parts. Sometimes when the die cuts are in a sheet, it has those little bits of paper left over. I'm going to line it up here first just to make sure that I've got everything straight and even, and that's because I put this on some foam again, and I want to make sure that I get it down straight the first time. And so I'm going to add this here in the middle. That will be my focal point. I've got some pretty flowers here from Little Birdie Crafts, and it's just that pretty blue that coordinates with my cardstock. I put another bow here on the top just to fill in that corner a little. This is a checkered satin that I got from Really Reasonable Ribbon, and I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to check that out. This works really well with this collection, I think. I put the flowers on the end here with just some loopy twine bows and the foliage that came with it. I pulled them off and repositioned them because I wanted them to be a little bit more prominent. Now you can see how nicely that will fill in that corner, and because we have such a narrow image, I was able to include a larger flower than I typically get to. So just add that right up here to the top. A couple of final details to finish this off is some sweet little bicycle charms, and I'm going to hold these here as I do so that I can get the position right when I adhere it to the book. Those strings into that glue. I'm going to make sure to remove the excess now, and then I'll finish that raw edge of string up with another button, and then I put a couple more buttons here at the bottom, and that will be the last final finishing detail. So that's it for our mini album created with the Endless collection from Authentic Paper. Remember that it helps out my channel greatly if you leave me a comment and give me a thumbs up for this video, and that helps me to grow our YouTube family. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell notification so you'll be alerted every time we add new content. If you check in the description below, you will find links to our social media sites as well as to Really Reasonable Ribbon and Gina Marie Designs for those dies. As always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!